Everyone for joining us. It's awesome to see y'all. Welcome to another month of user group quarantine. It's getting a tiny bit old. Hopefully you all are staying healthy, staying safe, wearing your mask, and hopefully voting soon. Remember, this is a community for you. So if any of you are feeling a bit shut in, please reach out to us. Let us know how we can to help. Just be a friendly voice. Since we have gone virtual, DSM Web Geeks has teamed up with DSM.js, and we've been doing our best to bring you fun and engaging events each month. If there is ever a topic that you yourself are interested in talking on, or if there is something you would like us to tackle, something you want us to create an event around, please let us know. We could use all that feedback. You can reach out to DSM Web Geeks at dsmwebgeeks.com or dsmjs at dsmjs.com. We're also on Twitter and Facebook and the like. All right, so tonight we are going to have fun tackling Hacktoberfest and trying to get involved in Hacktoberfest. We would like to do kind of a one-on-one for anyone who has never contributed to anything to open source. We may tackle that later on if anybody's interested. Maybe we can just kind of throw an impromptu thing together and see what specific questions you have about that. But just so that we're all on the same page, I'll throw this out here, what hackathon or Hacktoberfest is. So Hacktoberfest happens during the month of October. It's encourages people to support and contribute to open source projects. The event is run by DigitalOcean. If anybody's familiar with them, they're a great organization. They just host websites. All the projects that you're interacting with are stored on GitHub. Essentially, if you make a contribution to an open source project this month, you could win a prize. Right now they're giving away, I think, 75,000 t-shirts, and or you could choose to plant a tree. Essentially, open source projects are kind of anything. There are some specific requirements to get entered into the contest, but just generally what an open source project is, it can be any source code that is made available with no additional cost. And you can repurpose it and use it and build your own software off of it. That could be a giant code base created by a large corporation, or it could be a tiny little hello world created by me just for fun. That's all open source. Yeah, and just for context, one really great example of open source is like WordPress. This giant CMS that powers like 63% of the web. A lot of websites use it, so more than likely you have been on a website that was run by WordPress. It is open source. You yourself could contribute to the core software underlying WordPress if there was ever a feature or a change that you wanted to see or advocate for. So that being said, I think there are some very specific things that are good to take into consideration when participating in Hacktoberfest, and just in general when contributing to open source software. And our friend Matt Travey who also co-organizes these events with DSM.js, maybe can share his thoughts on that.
Yeah, so this year the rules for qualifying for your shirt have become more strict. So in years past, it's been either 4 PRs or some years it's been 5 PRs to any open source project. So any public project, you could send a PR, and as long as you've done that 4 or 5 times, and all the shirts aren't gone yet, you would qualify for a shirt. This year, at the beginning of Hacktoberfest, there was a lot of spam sent out to a lot of popular projects, which caused some trouble for a bunch of maintainers. And so DigitalOcean kind of stepped back and tried to come up with some ideas to curb the spam and make things a little easier on maintainers. So the first thing I would say is if you are sending PRs to open source projects that are popular, try to have some empathy for the maintainers, because this is a very busy time of year for people that are helping maintain these things for free on their own time. Before we even get into the rules that are new, some suggestions that I usually like to throw out there for that piece is like try to have a conversation with those maintainers before you send a great big PR that's kind of random to them, and expect that would get accepted right away. You know, they are maintaining the project. They're going to be the final ones that decide if they accept it or not. And so you want to take the time to convince them that your contribution is worthwhile. So a good step to do is maybe open an issue first and just kind of talk them through, like, this is something that I think could be useful, or if they have open issues that they need help with, kind of talk through on the issue first and get some agreement from the maintainer that they actually want help with that contribution and the direction that you're going. So to get to the specific rules, in the past, you could just send a PR and it didn't have to be accepted. It didn't have to be merged in order for it to qualify. This year, they've gone a step further to where the contributions have to be within the month of October. They have to be submitted to a public repo, but that repo either had to have opted in to accepting Hacktoberfest contributions, and they can do that by adding a topic to the repo to say Hacktoberfest. That kind of opts in to say, yes, we want contributions and we want them to qualify. Or a maintainer can mark a PR as Hacktoberfest accepted as a label. Or if they do merge it or mark it as approved, that will also make it qualify. So that handles some of the situations where, like, if a maintainer would merge it locally, there are ways for them to mark it as accepted. But the idea is you have to make your contributions this year to a repo that has opted in and get the contribution actually accepted by the maintainers. And so that's already made a big impact on the amount of spam that a lot of the maintainers have had to deal with so far. So hopefully that's
I was muted there.
Helpful.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. Okay, so what another thing we'd like to do is kind of highlight any awesome projects that anyone has that needs contribution, or that you have contributed to yourself, or if anybody wants to share kind of on their experience with contributing to open source software. So we can kind of go around and see who wants to talk about their project or project that they participated with. And then after that, maybe we'll kind of see if anyone needs specific help on making contributions, or what else we can do. I don't know if anyone has anything specific. I wonder if Tegan could maybe share a fun thing with us.
Yeah, so last year, kind of for Hacktoberfest, I did a contribution to Visual Studio Code. So it was just like a really small kind of thing to fix an inconsistency with it, but they merged it pretty much right away. It was like the next morning. So.
And yeah, and there, from what I remember, that process was fairly simple, right? I mean, you just didn't even feel like they reviewed it all that particularly well.
Yeah, no, I asked a couple questions. They didn't really respond to those questions. They were just like, sounds good, thumbs up, merge.
Yeah, yeah. So it's some kind of tracking code that you put in there, or
It was to make it so when you close others on an unpinned tab, then it becomes pinned. So a very, very tiny thing.
cool, awesome. I don't know if anybody else has any projects they'd like to share or like to talk about, so they can get some interest and maybe some help in.
I can share the project I've been working on a little bit, actually.
Go for it, Andrew.
I haven't been like, it's not some sort of like fundamental piece of the internet, I guess, kind of like maybe like a WordPress is or something. But I've been working on like a kind of on and off, especially around October, I will say, for like a mental health Rails application that exists called If Me. I think it's been around for about 5 years or so, and they're always looking for contributors to just kind of pop in. They have a really well-groomed list of issues that help you to just kind of, especially very beginner-friendly things, or if it's your first time with Rails, really, it's like a great project to kind of dip your toe into. And they're a very welcoming community that's like great to really just kind of dip your toe into open source too. On top of that, I think it was one of the first projects that really like learned how to do a Git flow properly, and like what having a conversation via issues actually looks like and stuff like that. So that's a project that I've been kind of on and off contributing to as well. So I'd recommend it. I don't know if anybody has any questions about it, or I think a really cool thing about it is that first time I tried to like contribute to Rails, I just like popped onto the issues and got totally inundated and overwhelmed by all of the like amount of traffic and stuff that's going through there. So finding a project like this that's kind of like an hour a day sort of speed rather than like a full-time job was really, really nice to actually feel like I'm making meaningful contributions to a project and don't need to like watch every single issue, and I'm not gonna maybe like have to dive in for 6 hours just to try and figure out a small issue. It's just help us refactor our tests like a file at a time basically, or something like that. So it's a great way to just get into it. So recommend that.
Yeah, I'm digging it. Thanks for sharing. And you threw the link up in chat just in case anybody wants to go check it out. Awesome. Anybody else have a fun project they'd like to share?
I can share a simple one. I can get Zoom to work properly. So I just dropped a link to a PR in the chat. Just a simple PR that I opened, I think, last week. To kind of spin off of what Andrew was saying, you know, you can try to target big projects, or you know, there's lots of smaller projects that are looking for help as well. In my new role, I'm working with Azure DevOps instead of like Travis CI or GitHub Actions. So I hadn't done that in the past, and a library that I use in a couple higher level tools is called envci, and that kind of normalizes some of the information across CI services to get you like your branch name and some different details about, you know, the PR, the git commit, those types of things that are part of your build process. And what I didn't realize, not having experience with Azure DevOps before, is it's a rebrand from Visual Studio Team Services. And so this library did support it, but I didn't realize that initially because I was looking for Azure DevOps. And so the contribution that I made here was just basically changing the name of VSTS to Azure DevOps to update that documentation and just some of the information that it gives. So some of the most useful contributions to a lot of projects are small things like this, or even documentation changes. A lot of times a maintainer is a little too close to the code to dog food the documentation. And so sometimes new eyes on some of that kind of stuff can be really nice contributions and a little less contentious because you're not trying to tell them like how to design their code. You're helping other consumers of that software to find an easier way to get started.
Digging it. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, I think some of those contributions are really meaningful too, because nobody updates the documentation, right? It's like a meme within developers, right? That nobody actually updates their documentation. So having someone that comes along and actually does it, I think is really beneficial.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
One other thing, I guess. Sorry,
go for it. I was going to say, I've never contributed to an open source project. I'm always just searching for those like easy spelling errors I can fix or something, because like that's the simplest way to hop in and earn a T-shirt.
Yeah,
I've never found anything.
Well, and if you're especially if you're using a library and something just seems a little bit off, I mean, arguments or anything, those are hugely valuable to get as a maintainer from somebody. The other thing I was going to mention though is, according to the rules, it's really any open source project that has opted in. So if you are looking for simple things, one thing I like to differentiate between open source and public software, I like to try to advocate that, if you're practicing projects, it's great to do those in public if you're practicing anyway. It's totally valid to send your own project a PR if you're looking for simpler ways to qualify. Some may suggest that that's a little bit cheating, but to kind of highlight, some of the goals of Hacktoberfest aren't just contributions to great big projects like WordPress, etc. A lot of it is to have us go through those motions and learn the process. And so don't feel like you're cheating if you are even contributing to your own project, because you're still making it public and giving an opportunity for somebody to learn from the project.
Take it. Cool. Yeah. Does anybody else have any fun projects or times when they have contributed to open source, or maybe just an open source software that you wish more people would contribute to? Like, it doesn't score me any points, but I used to troll the Bootstrap opened issues and open PRs, and I would comment heavily on those, but never found a time when I could contribute any actual code or open my own PR. Doesn't earn you a T-shirt though, so it's not really useful.
Yeah, has anybody ever jumped on issues for like a project at all and just tried to triaging them, I guess? Like, I know it's not technically opening up a PR for Hacktoberfest, but it's like a good way that I've found to get my self-involved within a project as well, as just kind of following the issues and trying to help the conversation. Or I don't know if anybody's ever helped troubleshoot an issue or something like that, or even opened up an issue for a project before.
Yeah, I like I said, used to do that all the time for Bootstrap when it was in making the transition to Bootstrap 3, I believe. And now I still get a ton of emails from old issues that shouldn't even exist anymore. This is that browser that caused that issue is now dead, so there's no reason to even be complaining about this thing. I think I've even made contributions to or commented or opened issues for Chromium or something. There was this really horrible issue within developer tools, and I still today will get a huge long chain of emails that all of that, the way it was all organized and kept is just ugly and hard to read and just kind of gross. And so you really have no idea what's going on, or if you need this email, or if it's useful, or if it even solved your issue.
Well, yeah, that's the piece. I think my biggest request for GitHub these days is way to mark why I subscribed to the issue. Why am I getting this notification 3 years later? Like, did it actually fix the thing I was doing? I don't know. I don't have a clue why I decided to follow this issue. To the question about triaging issues, I'll throw out, I'm currently on the core team of Semantic Release, if some people are familiar with that library for publishing packages automatically. That was a big part of how I got involved with the team. I mean, I used it heavily enough that I followed it just so that I was aware of things that were changing, but I was able to help out with things that I knew over time and just got to know the maintainers well enough that, you know, over time I helped more and more, and you know, now I'm on the core team helping them a little more directly.
Yeah, there's a lot of open source projects that I aspire to help out on, but they just go well over my head. Lots of like C++ and just projects that were written in languages that I'm not proficient in. But I love the project a lot, so I'll troll the issues and try to look for any way that I could possibly jump in, but yeah, it rarely happens.
I shared a link too for this tool called Code Triage, which is like it's like an emailing list essentially for, you can like subscribe to projects and like they'll just periodically send you like emails for stuff. So I very rarely have followed up on it, but it's cool. It's a cool tool. You could probably like follow a project and like see what issues need, and they'll like just kind of shoot you an email occasionally just saying like, hey, here's some stuff that you should like come check out. So
that is really helpful. All right. Well, the other thing that we were hoping to try and tackle during this was actually helping anyone learn how to contribute to open source software. We did have a speaker planned for that, but that may have fallen through. So I don't know if there is enough collective knowledge in this room, in this video, to be able to throw something together. I don't know if anybody has any specific questions, or if we could I don't know, screen share a simple PR build or something to that nature. I don't know if anybody, I guess we could start with anybody having any specific questions. I don't know how many of us here are familiar with or have contributed to open software before. I don't know if there's an easy way to note that.
I would maybe ask, you know, even if you haven't contributed to open source software, are there folks in the room that have never had the chance to like go through a PR flow through GitHub? Like have you, whether it's through GitHub or other internal tools like GitHub, has anyone willing to say if they're totally new to the PR or contribution process?
I am brand new to that process, and I'm not new to software development by any stretch, and so I'm a little embarrassed on that. But
sure. No.
Yeah,
No reason to be.
Yeah, I mean, for me too, like I've worked on plenty of teams where they have a process, plenty of teams where they don't have a process, and plenty of teams where they just kind of made up everything as they go along. And I feel like it's even, it kind of changes a little bit too, or matures as we go along. And so I think just knowing best practices and how best practices have evolved is always a great thing.
you could certainly start with just general conversation on how to find projects, just actually how to find them. Is it just as simple as Google search, or a process on GitHub itself, or what? 101 right here.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I don't know how. I don't know if there's a really. I definitely don't have a really great answer for that. I know personally, I start with my interests, and then that just kind of leads me down. Projects that I would find interesting to contribute to, and then I kind of stalk them until it's possible that I could help out. I don't know if anybody has any like really concrete examples of ways to seek out and find communities that are open to contributions.
If you're looking specifically for Hacktoberfest, if you go to the DigitalOcean Hacktoberfest homepage, they actually provide a list of projects that have marked issues as Hacktoberfest. I forget the exact label, but there's a label that they search for across GitHub that then they can list all the projects that have kind of opted in and have provided some issues. So they actually have a drop down for like which programming language you'd like to contribute in, and that'll even filter the projects down to give you some ideas of projects that might fit that if you're working in that area.
Yeah, and I just dropped it in chat too. There's a Hacktoberfest finder that that will help that will aid in that. Yeah.
And I think potentially from the standpoint of people having contributed to multiple projects. So I've done pull requests for some smaller projects, and to me, it seems like maybe there is a broader standard out there, but when you're dealing with kind of like a single maintainer, so maybe walking through what kind of like a standardized process is that kind of scopes across everything versus individual maintainers or certain open source projects. Because I've done a couple, but even then I feel like there's probably a wider world out there that is more standardized than what I've dealt with.
Yeah, indeed. And I think just even just testing the water and trying to get out there on a smaller project, as long as they're participating and willing, I think the entire process will be educational. Whether or not your PR actually goes through, I think that's still going to be very beneficial for you, for sure.
And another very simple question, this is kind of ridiculous, but if you were to actually contribute some code, let's say one extreme example would be just a spelling fix. Is there any vetting process by the maintainers that would say, do they ask you if you've downloaded the code and built it and run it, whatever that might be? Or could you just submit a random code page? I don't know. I'm just.
No, that's a really good question. I don't know. Does anybody want to go through like their process at their organization that you do every day on just from create a PR to close of a PR?
If you want, I could even run through like actually creating a small PR and accepting it in a project. I can kind of demo that.
Yeah. I don't know if I have to make you the organizer or host, or if you can just request to just share screen. Because
it says host disabled attendee screen sharing, so you may have to do something for me.
Okay, let me.
Also, so I just dropped another link into the chat. Just makeapullrequest.com. This is a page by Kent Dodds. It's actually mostly a link to his Egghead demo, but he has a series of short videos that kind of walk you through some of these steps to going through a fairly straightforward PR process.
Is his pull request process, is that the through the graphical interface? Because I know, GitHub has done massive kind of like GUI improvements in terms of being able to do it just without any command line at all, which I think, in some cases is less confusing.
Yeah, that's a good question. I haven't watched the series for quite a while now. I don't remember which process he uses, but if I get a chance to go through a demo here, I'll do it through just the web UI to show it.
Okay,
Oh,
so
sure, great.
Matt, I made you host.
Okay, so let me see. Hopefully you all can just see my browser. So this is that makeapullrequest.com page. So just to show, this just links to his Egghead course. So it's a series of, about GitHub, what a repository is, how to install Git. So it goes into some of the technical pieces, but then jumps back into like the pull request process on the GitHub side. So if you are new to it, that's a free Egghead course that you can go through as well, which I found kind of helpful. Let's see. So just to do a quick little PR process. So this is another project that I maintain. This project will, through a settings file, it'll actually maintain the admin settings of a repo for you. And of course, this repo uses itself. And so the settings for this repository, oh, you know what? I need an approval on this one. This is not a good example. Let's see. Hold on. Let me jump somewhere else. Sorry, 1 second. Let's say this one. So don't worry too much about this project itself. What I'm planning on doing is just, so we went through the rules about making a project, opting it in for enabling contribution. So to kind of use that settings app still as the example. So this settings file defines the admin settings of this repository. And so you can look at the contents. This is like my account level defaults, but you can see this is the repository name. This is the description, the homepage, and that it's not private. So if I hop back here quick, you can see like this is the description of the project. So I'm just going to make a small change to this to opt it in and add that topic that DigitalOcean would look for. So you can just open the file and you can go to edit this file. If I was not an admin on this, it would prompt you to fork the repository. Let's see. Let me actually go ahead and do that process. So let's start at the beginning. So in order to make a contribution that you are not a direct contributor to, you have to make a copy of the repository, make your change in your copy, and then ask a maintainer to take that back. So if you go to the project on GitHub, you can click on this fork, and it'll ask you what account you want to fork it to. So I'm just going to fork it to my personal account. And so this is just making essentially a copy of this project into my personal GitHub project, or my personal GitHub account. And so you can see now it is under my personal account, but it's a fork of the original. So now if I wanted to go into that file and opt it into Hacktoberfest, now I can open the file, I can say edit, and I just want to add topics, and I want to say Hacktoberfest, because that is that's the topic that they have said is the correct one to use to opt in. So I want to add that, and let's see, opt into Hacktoberfest contributions. So I want to commit that into my fork. And if you want to confirm that's there. So this is the most recent commit on this file. you can see the history of commits to this file, and that one's listed there. But if you want to look at the list of commits that are for the repository, you can come out to the root of the project. And again, this number of commits, if you click on that, it'll show that the commit that I just made is the latest one on that list. So if I come back out here, you can see now this fork is one commit ahead of the original project. And it gives me a link right here to create a pull request. So I'll click on that. And you can see so this arrow shows that I'm going from my fork into the original, and I want to create a pull request. And this is the change that's included. That's the only thing that's different between the two. So I'll go ahead and create that pull request. And so notice I'm now back in the original project, and we'll wait for the build to pass. And so as a reviewer, I can, while that's building, I can look at the commits directly, see what the changes were. But more likely, I'm probably looking at the files changed. And so this shows that the only change that was made is that one line change that we mentioned. And I'll go ahead and approve that change while we're waiting.
And it's important to note at this point too, like everybody can see this PR. So at this time, you know, even people that maybe aren't directly contributing to this project could hop in and leave a comment if there's something egregious or whatever that should be changed.
Right. And since I made this change, it's not going to let me approve, but normally I would click approve and submit review. But yeah, to the question earlier, yeah, whether you're an actual contributor or somebody just like following the project or having stumbled on the PR, you can come in and do that same looking at the changes and make comments against it. If there are things that we would say, you know, I don't want to accept this change, you could decline it and you can say why, you can close the pull request. All that stuff is a public process. This section here shows all the automated checks that are set up against this project to make sure that from a static analysis perspective, it matches what the expectations are. And those expectations are really defined by the project. It could be unit tests, it could be linting, it could be you know, certain checks against even documentation, some check for aggressive language and some of those kinds of things. But you know, that kind of feedback can come from automated tools or the humans that maintain the project. This one shows, you know, unit test coverage. I didn't change any code, so that didn't change. This failure is unrelated, so go ahead and ignore that. But like, if this was a more meaningful contribution, I would probably, as a maintainer, see, okay, that's failing. I'd like you to make a change so that commit message adheres to our standard for the project. But now that that's ready to go, I'll merge it. And this is really the completion of the contribution process. So once a maintainer has approved it and merges it in, you're essentially, your contribution has been approved. And to just kind of demo that settings capability, gosh, I don't know where topics even show up on this new UI. Maybe it didn't work. Well, we won't worry about demoing that piece. But questions about the contribution process, those steps that are involved there?
Pretty straightforward. That was awesome. Thank you.
Sure thing.
Yeah,
and I tossed. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, well, I was going to say the cool thing with what Matt just showed us was that you don't even have to have an editor or necessarily running it locally. You just made everything within GitHub on the website. That's very easy to do when you're talking about a README file or documentation.
Right.
Yeah,
Yep.
Great point. And just to cover the real simple bases here, when you refer to a PR, you're referring to the not a pull request, but a public repository, or
Sorry, no, good question. In that case, I am referring to the pull request, and so that really is just a request to the maintainers to say, you know,
Right.
I've made a contribution. I'd like you to pull it into your main line. I believe GitLab calls it. Gosh, I don't even know. But there are a few different names. But yeah, within the context of GitHub, it's typically called a pull request or a PR for short.
just want to make sure my terminology is
Sure.
correct.
Yep.
And I dropped 2 links in the chat there because watching the graphical process reminded me that GitHub had updated. So they had like a digital sort of like walkthrough, and I can't remember which of those links it's at, but it actually uses your GitHub repository and it walks through that process visually. So you actually make the commits and then you accept the pull request and pull one and fork. And so that might be worthwhile to go through as well.
Yeah, great point. And I know there are some repositories out there, not only for Hacktoberfest, but kind of get a little more attention during Hacktoberfest that like you can, like they have a list that you like add your name to. And like that is the whole purpose of the project. Like the contribution itself is a very simple contribution, but it gives you an easy place to go through this type of a process and contribute to a third-party project that you know they're willing to accept those types of changes.
And I think if I remember correctly, there are sometimes like tags that are on specific projects that are like first-time contributors, and that's like a way to find some projects that are exactly what like Matt was talking about, like just a way to get used to the flow by like adding like your name or something else.
Yeah, great to call that out. Sometimes it's good first issue. Help wanted are also good ones to look for. I think there are a couple other similar, fairly common ones like that.
This may be a really, really dumb and I don't know, dumb question, but some of you know I've been pretty much on one project since I started as a software developer. And one of the things that I always struggle with is like just the configuration, like getting the proper dependencies or the right versions of dependencies and that kind of stuff. And then without doubt, like I set it up and then that screws up my project. Like, so like, what's the best way to handle that kind of stuff? I know there's like dependency managers and version managers and all that kind of stuff, but it always seems like something gets screwed up and then it's like starting from scratch. So I don't know if there's any words of advice on that front.
Is that specifically with JavaScript projects or more general?
It's more general. Like I'm doing primarily Ruby on Rails with some JavaScript, but
the reason I asked that is typically if you can like install the actual language on your machine using a version manager, it enables switching versions a little bit more easily. And so at least, you know, you're isolated to that version on what you're impacting.
I think more specifically, like all of the dependencies for the project that like, so I was looking at the one that someone linked earlier, the if me, and they are more recent in their dependencies than some of the stuff that I've been using for the project that I work on. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know if there's a better way of just managing all that stuff. Because then I'll upgrade my dependency to be able to work on their project, mm-hmm. and then I have to like totally restart or something.
Yeah, typically you would hope some of that would be kind of mitigated with using like a Ruby version manager, because typically you use gem sets, mm-hmm. and all of your dependencies would be set under one house, one roof essentially, and then you can switch projects easily and it won't mess with each other. Same with Node Package Manager, that usually happens, or npm, which is a Node version switcher. And then, or you can always use Docker, which is quite a lot to set up, but it's possible.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I have RBenv instead of RVM, which I guess the one big difference is that gemsets thing. So maybe I need to make that switch.
And RBenv is the one that I've used in the past and have had good luck with it. But I will say I have struggled a little bit with Ruby in the past because of its like default nature to install things more globally. Like with Node, the default is to kind of install your packages locally to the project. But there, yeah, I don't know the tricks on the Ruby side to help you install them more locally.
I mean, I think we can all agree that Ruby is just awful. I'm saying that. There's quite a few Ruby people here. That's why I'm saying that. No. I think gemsets do alleviate that issue because they put things under a specific roof with RVM. Yeah,
I'll take a look at that.
Yeah, I'll second RVM. Oh, sorry. I was just going to second RVM is like how I use my like version management for all of my like Rubies and stuff like that. Okay. Yeah, it works like a charm for me so far. So
thank you.
I haven't done anything in Ruby, but I admit to having set up entire virtual machines just to work on a project.
You're not alone in that.
Cool. Yeah. I don't know if there's any other fun things we can go over for anybody else. If anyone has any questions or wants to just share really cool projects. Rick, you could talk about your awesome little cat there if you would like. That's kind of really cute.
That's near the microphone right now.
Wow. We're about to get a dog, so I'm and we'll have a little puppy running around here. I'm a little nervous about that, honestly. I've already got kids. Adding a third kid is going to be challenging, I think. Awesome. Well, we usually try to keep this to about an hour, and wrapping up right about now would be fine. But certainly if anyone is looking for some more guidance on contributing to open source software, or if there is a project that you would like some support on, hit us up, DSM webgeeks.com. I threw both links in the chat for DSM WebGeeks and DSM.js. Or hit us up on Twitter or Facebook. We are committed to doing one of these events each month, and so next month we are going to do a thing. We don't yet have exactly tacked down what that will be, but as soon as we know, we will let you know, and hopefully that will be within the next couple weeks here. So please stay tuned. And again, if anybody is interested in talking or seeing something specific, please let us know. All right, y'all. Thank you very much for joining. Stay safe. Make sure you go vote. And we will hopefully see everybody next month. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
See ya.